Has Madden 26 franchise mode gotten boring for you? Well, I'm here to help. Today, I'm going to go over pretty much everything you need to know in order to have a positive experience on franchise mode inside of Madden 26. Whether this is your first year ever playing Madden franchise or you're a seasoned pro, I'm going to have something for everyone in this video. I've made similar videos to this in the past, including last year on Madden 25. I've done this for other games as well, including NBA 2K, MLB The Show, and most recently, just a few weeks ago, EA College Football 26. Now, I already have a video that goes over the most important settings and XP sliders and rosters inside of franchise mode this year, so I'm not going to go over those in detail again, but I'll leave a card at the top right of the screen in case you're interested. The reason I have set those rosters and whatnot up is so player progression inside of franchise mode can be as realistic as possible in terms of stats across the league, in terms of just natural ratings progression across every position. Currently, my roster is the 6th most downloaded on the Vault, with over 5,000 downloads through not even 2 weeks of it being up, so I appreciate all the support so far. I'll go over a couple of the changes here for those of you who may have missed the original video of this, but for instance, at the quarterback position, I nerfed everyone's awareness for the most part, or at least the top guys. I noticed a direct correlation between awareness rating and the amount of interceptions that quarterbacks threw, and I felt like there were not enough interceptions inside of Madden Sim. As for the XP sliders, I did a lot of testing over the first few days of the game being out. This is what I ultimately came up with for my progression and regression sliders in order to have a realistic feel across the league and all 32 teams do not get oversaturated with good players. Now, I will say you don't necessarily have to include my rosters or my XP sliders to have a good franchise experience, but I do highly recommend them, especially for those of you who like to play more realistically and care about the little things such as stats and player progression. I do recommend that. From there, you'll get to choose online or offline franchise. I usually do offline because I don't want to rely on the servers working, along with having multiple save files, but this is your own personal preference. For this video, I'm just going to choose the online one because the simulation speed is faster. Now, if you are using a roster such as mine, you'll want to click the option on the right where it allows for a custom roster. It'll load in, and then now you've got a big decision to make. Which team are you going to pick? I already have 2 videos going over the best teams, in my opinion, for franchise this year, and I'll leave a card at the top right of your screen if you're interested once again. But my biggest piece of advice is pick the team you want, whether it's a rebuilding team, a contending team, or your favorite team. For today's video, we're going to roll with the Buccaneers. No real reason, I just feel like it. Now it's time to pick a coaching type. Of course, you can pick the team's current coach, but if you're feeling bold, you can create your own. There are 3 different types newly added to the game this year, and they are exactly what they sound like. If you pick the offensive guru, you're going to have abilities that are more geared towards the offensive side of the ball, offensive play calling or offensive development. Defense is the exact opposite, geared towards defense. And then Development Wizard is less about either one side of the ball, less about X's and O's, but more about team building and personnel development. From there, you can choose where you start, whether it's the preseason, regular season, or if you're feeling crazy, you can do a fantasy draft. Let's talk about settings because these are important. This is what I currently am using for the Browns franchise here on the channel. You have gameplay settings at the top. I play on all pro, simulation, 10-minute quarters, 20-minute accelerated clock. For team settings, I like to keep everything on manual because I like to do things myself, but if you don't want to do practice, if you don't want to do scouting, turn those on auto. As for the commissioner settings, you can get funky here in terms of injuries, salary cap, however you want it. I think these settings right here are the most realistic. So if you're looking for a realistic approach, I would recommend you follow these settings for the most part. But again, personal preference. If there's something you would rather do, who am I to stop you? So now we've set our franchise up and it's time to meet the team. Whether you're doing a realistic or unrealistic styled franchise, it is pretty important that you understand your roster. We'll roll with the Buccaneers for this example. We'll start at the quarterback position. We'll take a look at Baker Mayfield, who is in an interesting spot in his career because on one hand, he's 30. He's not getting any younger. He's probably not going to be rated much higher than the mid-80s. but he's a pretty good starting quarterback. He has superstar development in the base roster. Now, if you follow along with my development changes, I have him going down to star. But nonetheless, Baker Mayfield is a quality starting quarterback. He's ranked 14th overall in the game with these rosters, which I think is pretty appropriate. I've seen him ranked a lot in people's top 5 to 10, which I think is kind of crazy. I think 14 is a good spot. He's a good player on a really team-friendly contract. Granted, it's only 2 years, but Baker's really not making that much money compared to the other quarterbacks in his general talent bucket. And then as we look at the rest of the offense, there's a lot of playmakers. Bucky Irving, my glorious Kane Sean Tucker, loaded wide receiver room with Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, the rookie, Emeka Ibuka. Clearly, the skill position group is one of the strengths of this team. The offensive line is up and down, but Tristan Wirfs is one of the best in the business. And then as we look at the defense, there are some good players here. Antoine Winfield, Vita Vea, Levante David, all stalwarts in this Buccaneers defense for quite some time. I think especially with the defensive side of the ball, though, it can be a little bit challenging with all the different schemes, all the different personnel packages and formations, especially with the new positions added to the game this year. The Buccaneers run a 3-4, which means in their base formations, they have 3 defensive linemen and 4 linebackers on the field. In the Bucs scheme, usually the 3 defensive linemen in the game are all going to be defensive tackles. So because of that, their defensive tackle position group is stronger compared to a team who runs a 4-3 because the Buccaneers need 3 starters here, which they have with Vita Vea, Greg Gaines, and Kalijah Kancey. All very, very solid players. They have plenty of depth as well behind those guys, so they've got a lot of players who can rotate in and out. As for the nose tackle, this is more of your big physical run stuffer, and that's Vita Vea to a T. He is someone who can clog up space, clog up rushing lanes at 350 pounds. Now, most nose tackles are not great pass rushers. Vita Vea is an exception because he's one of the best at his position in the NFL. But generally, your nose tackle is someone you want on the field on early downs who can stop the interior run, but probably won't be there on passing downs. Again, Vita Vea, more of an exception. Let's use a 4-3 defense as an example now. We'll roll with the Packers, even though I don't really like the Packers. I think the guys they have on their roster and their personnel is a good and easy example. So usually in their base formations, they're going to have 2 defensive tackles on the field, Kenny Clark and Devontae Wyatt. As you can see, there's not as much depth at defensive tackle compared to the Bucs. That's because they only need 2 on the field at a time compared to 3. They've still got some solid young guys behind the 2 starters as depth, but they only need 2 defensive tackles on the field at a time. With the Bucs, who run a 3-4 scheme, the edge rushers are lined up at linebacker. So generally, that means they're going to be a little bit smaller. They're going to be a little bit more explosive. David Walker, the rookie from Central Arkansas, is a good example at just 6'1". Hassan Reddick, also undersized at 6'1", 240 pounds. But he makes it work as an edge rusher in this 3-4 scheme because his hand is in the dirt. He is explosive and twitchy and bendy off the edge. Sometimes the edge rushers in a 3-4 scheme who are lined up at linebacker can cover. Reddick can do it a little bit. Obviously not something you want him doing too often, but he can do it out of necessity. As you look at his attributes, really fast, really explosive. His strength rating is kind of low though. Yaya Diaby at right end, super fast, but not the strongest. Now he is kind of bigger, 6'3", 270 pounds, but he fits this Buccaneers scheme naturally because of his bend and twitch off the edge as a 3-4 edge rusher. Now, you could put him into a 4-3 scheme like Green Bay, and I'm sure he would do just fine, especially in Madden, because Yaya Diaby is really good in this game, but he's better fit for a 3-4 team. Then you look at the Packers, for instance. Their edge rushers are bigger. Running a 4-3, they've got these guys with their hand in the dirt. Rashawn Gary's a bigger guy. Lucas Van Ness is a bigger edge rusher at 6'5", 270. The depth behind them, like Baron Sorrell and Kingsley Enagbare, those guys are bigger. Now, I will say Lucas Van Ness and Rashawn Gary are both very athletic and very explosive. The Packers definitely are the type in terms of their edge rushers, and those guys just happen to be very athletic and very positionally flexible. Is positionally a word? I don't think so. So as we look at linebacker in a 3-4 scheme, 2 of those spots are already taken by the edge rushers for the Bucs, so that means there's only 2 left. Your Mike linebacker and then someone else. Levante David is the prototypical Mike linebacker. Mike, middle, pretty easy to remember. Usually the middle linebackers, the quarterback of the defense, they should be able to cover a little bit. They should be able to stop the run a little bit. And Levante David is certainly that. He's been one of the best Mike linebackers in the NFL for over a decade now. What about the Sam and Will linebacker? These are newer positions added to the game this year. So let me explain them the best I can with the Packers. Since they are a 4-3 team, they use their Sam and Will linebackers in this game more than, say, the Bucs would. Edgerrin Cooper, for instance, is the Mike linebacker for the Packers. He's really good. I'm terrified that he's going to be in our division for the next 3 years. What about the Sam and Mike linebacker, though? Because they are newer positions added to the game. Let me try to explain these two new positions the best way I can for those who might be unfamiliar. So we'll start with the Sam linebacker, which is usually the linebacker on the strong side of the field. The easiest way to remember that is Sam, starts with S. Strong side starts with S. And when I say strong side, I mean where there's more offensive personnel, generally the tight end. Whichever side of the offensive line the tight end is on, usually that's where the Sam linebacker is going to be. The Sam linebacker should be able to cover the tight end in man coverage. Obviously, you want them to be able to play zone as well. You want them to be able to defend the run as well. And then the Will linebacker, they are where the weak side is. Will starts with W. Weak side starts with W. Generally not where the tight end is located. These are your athletic linebackers who can cover a lot of space in zone coverage. They're also effective in the run game because if the running back cuts to the outside and has room, the Will linebackers should be taking up a lot of space and can potentially make a play on the running back. Now, you can move your linebackers around as you wish, especially playing Madden. There's a lot of freedom with it, and teams do that in the NFL anyway. Let's look at the highest rated players at each of the linebacker positions in the game. The Mike is the middle. They've got guys like Fred Warner, Roquan Smith. The Will linebackers are guys who are generally really good zone cover players, guys who are really athletic, guys who can take a lot of space. And then the strong side linebackers, these are the guys you want on tight ends and man coverage. All of your linebackers, though, should be able to hopefully cover to an extent, and all of them should be able to defend the run to an extent. So hopefully that explanation of the new linebacker positions made enough sense. As for the secondary, the Bucs have a lot of good players in this secondary. Usually, in a base formation, you're going to have 4 defensive backs on the field, 2 corners and 2 safeties. But if you're running a nickel or dime package, you're going to have extra DBs out there. If you're going to call a play in a nickel defensive formation, that means a third cornerback is going to come on the field, which usually means they're going to be responsible for the slot receiver. If you call a play in dime, that means a fourth corner is going to come on the field. Maybe they're covering another receiver or a tight end or are in zone coverage or are coming in on a blitz. Usually, the slot corners will take some of the off-ball linebackers off the field. Once you're in nickel and dime, that's when your rush defensive linemen will enter the game. You can make them starters or you can rotate some of the other guys in and out. For a lot of people, myself included, most of the defensive plays we run are in nickel or dime. I would say well over 50% of my defensive play calls in Madden or in college football are in either nickel or dime. That's more of a base formation for me rather than the base formation of 4-3 or 3-4 itself. The best times to call a nickel or dime play is when you expect the opposing offense to throw the ball. So on a third down or when the offense is behind the sticks, you're probably going to want 5 or 6 defensive backs on the field to cover the receivers, cover the short area of the field, cover the deep spots as well. Maybe have 2 or 3 guys back and a cover 3. All right, let's talk about trades now. Whether you want a realistic or unrealistic franchise, trades are probably going to be part of your experience. I have a couple videos already going over some guys who you should look to trade for, one of which I wanted to use as my example was Jamison Williams, but unfortunately I don't think the Lions are going to cooperate. I tried Rashee Rice as well, and the offers ended up being too much. So I ended up picking a different player for my experiment instead. We're going to look at the Titans and their second-round rookie edge rusher, Oluwafemi Oladejo, 21 years old, 74 overall, hit in development. He's a monster in this game. I've seen simulations where he gets as many as 30 sacks by his second season, and he's pretty easy to get. Once you identify a trade target, there's 2 different ways you can go about this. We'll start with the realistic way. One of the offers that the Titans sent us was for Jamel Dean. I think this would be a great trade for the Bucs. We've got 3 guys who can play at corner. Zion McCollum's a good starter. Benjamin Morrison and Jacob Parrish are both 21 years old with hidden development. We don't really need a guy like Jamel Dean. We have a loaded cornerback room as is without him. Dean is 28 years old. He's probably not going to get much better. And we can get a guy in Oluwafemi Oladejo who's only 21, who's a monster in this game. He'll be cheap for 4 years, and he plays a premium position. This is a home run deal for us. But does it make sense for the Titans to take this? Why would they take this trade? Oladejo's already a starter at a very weak position for them. Corner's not some major need, and they're trading their recent second-round pick for a guy who's 28 and probably won't get a whole lot better. So if you want to be realistic about this, ask yourself, does this trade make sense for the Tennessee Titans? And in my opinion, the answer is very clearly no. The Titans do not have a good reason to take this. Now, if you want to be unrealistic and you don't want to restrict yourself, then by all means, take the trade. You are ripping off the Titans. It's a matter of how you want to run your franchise, whether you want to be realistic about it or not. Let's make it to the start of the regular season, and let's talk about the different styles of franchise you can go with. The first style is where you simulate, you go through multiple seasons quickly. In order to do that, you'll want to go down here to the Advance Week button, and then from there, you'll have a few choices of how far you can simulate into the future. Pretty straightforward. The other styles of franchise is where you play the games, which is what I do, or where you can watch the games without controlling the players on the field. Regardless if you play or watch, your sliders will be important. I play on All-Pro simulation, 10-minute quarters. Do not let people peer pressure you into playing a certain difficulty. Be honest with yourself. If you're not good enough for All Madden, don't do it. It's not worth it. It's not fun. Find the difficulty that best suits you that's going to make your gameplay experience the most enjoyable. Along with the gameplay difficulty itself, sliders are very important. I'll show you guys the sliders that I used for my most recent game in the Browns franchise against Minnesota. We're currently 0-5 in the series so far, so clearly it's not too easy for me. It might be too easy for you if you're an experienced Madden player who hopefully is better at the game than me. I'll try to find some good gameplay sliders. I know Matt 10 does some really good work with that, so if I'm able to find those, I'll put those in the description for when you play the games or if you want to watch the games instead. So you've got your settings and sliders set up. It's time to play. The Buccaneers are headed to Atlanta in Week 1 to play against the Atlanta Falcons. Big game here, division rival. The Bucs are favored in the NFC South, but Atlanta, if anyone, probably is the best chance to challenge them for this division. So obviously, you want to get the season started off on the right foot. Luckily for you, you've got gameplay sliders that you're comfortable with that are enough of a challenge to where it's not necessarily easy, but not hard enough to where you want to launch your controller into the TV, because the last thing we need to do is buy a whole new flat screen TV because you couldn't control yourself. If you don't like to play the game, though, you can also watch the game, which has sort of become a more popular thing over the last 5 years. Mr. Hurricane is definitely the one who I would say was the innovator of this. If you want to watch, though, go into Super Sim, click slow speed, and then you can watch the game, CPU versus CPU style. It's like being the GM of the team. I may make the roster moves and all the decisions for the Buccaneers, but I'm not playing the game. And I think this is a fun and new way of enjoying franchise mode, and I highly recommend it for those who have not done it yet. So that's pretty much going to wrap up the video. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you have any other questions or comments, feel free to leave them down below. I hope this helped you out, and I hope you were able to take something away from this video to improve your franchise experience on Madden 26. Make sure to leave a like, subscribe to the channel if you are new. Peace out.